Odin made a final play to try and save all of the Asgardians from Loki and his children. But was it all for naught? As Loki is saved by some eldritch horror, and together they seek to destroy not only Asgard, but all of the realms. This is Immortal Coil, numbers 1 and 2. Hello there, Geek Collective, and welcome to Geeks Plus Comics, where we are more than just your average geeks. I, of course, am your host for today, Cross, and we are checking out Immortal Coil numbers 1 and 2 from GVS Comics. GVS Comics, named after the creator and one of the writers and one of the artists of Immortal Coil, Gerald von Stoddard. Immortal Coil is a comic series that was funded on Kickstarter, and it is described as an epic story of Norse mythology through the lens of eldritch horror, set in a modern world teetering on the brink of cosmic oblivion. I'll be honest though, I was a little bit nervous going into this book. I mean, it's another book looking at Norse mythology, and I feel like that has been so overdone recently with a lot of presence of Norse mythology. Partially in thanks to, I believe, the MCU with the representation of Thor and Loki and the rest of Asgard and the popularity of those characters. But not just from that, I believe Norse mythology became as popular as Greek mythology would have been just a few decades ago, and how prominent those characters are. In saying that though, I would be lying if I said that the description of the book wasn't what intrigued me to it. The fact of that we were getting Norse mythology mixing with eldritch horror definitely caught my attention. And if you've watched this channel for any length of time, I definitely have a love for horror comics. It's definitely something I have a specific taste for, that I'm definitely gravitating towards a really good horror comic. So getting to see that mix of eldritch horror with Norse mythology, I thought that's something to check out. And that's even with eldritch horror stuff and Lovecraftian stuff becoming not as overdone as like Norse mythology is, but starting to really become a thing within pop culture as of itself. But I'm a sucker for a good mashup like this, and I wanted to see what we could do with it. I'm intrigued enough that this could be a really good time, so I thought, what the heck, let's check out Immortal Coil and let's see what he can do with Norse mythology mixed with eldritch horror. But before we jump into today's comic, just a reminder to go down and like the video and also hit that subscribe button, as it really does help us out on the channel and helps the channel grow. We greatly appreciate it and your support in helping getting the videos out there and the love that we want them to get. Thank you for everyone that does that on a weekly basis for us. Also, if you want to help support us even further, we also have a Patreon. The link is down below for that also, where you can support us for as little as $2 a month. Sorry, I'm getting tongue-tied there. And you get access to all of our videos early, as well as some exclusive content over there for our Patreon subscribers. But now that all of that stuff's out the road, it's time. Let's dive on in. This is Immortal Coil, numbers 1 and 2. Immortal Coil, numbers 1 and 2, has main writing and artwork from Gerald von Stoddard, with co-writing on issue 2 from Shawn French and Frank Martin, as well as inking from John Martin. Coloring is by Guilherme Lindemberg, with lettering for issue 1 from Rob Jones and issue 2 from Jerome Gagnon. Our issues begin at an old large house, with the backdrop of a large city looming over it, although we aren't expressly told which city. We see a figure clad in green and wearing a white porcelain horned mask. He is looking through books on a bookshelf. The figure is the god of mischief, Loki, and he is looking for a specific book here. He finds it and opens it to reveal the picture of a Cthulhu-looking creature, and with it a small vial that seems to contain something inside. Loki says, a faceless god, hiding in plain sight, to the last days of men and foolish gods. We also see an older man, well dressed in a suit with an eye patch over his right eye. Odin. He is making his way down the staircase in the hall, and towards the study where Loki currently is. As Odin enters the study, Loki apologizes for waking him. He says that he is in awe, as if he is the father of lies, then the apple really doesn't fall far from the tree. Loki says that Odin's greatest weakness, though, is his hubris, and that the vial he now possesses wasn't hard to find once he strangled the location out of one of his ravens, but tells him not to worry, as he has one left. He says he doesn't know how Odin did it, and honestly doesn't really care, but it's allowed him a millennia to see where he had went wrong, and now his eyes are open. Maybe he should be thanking Odin for that. But after all this plotting, where has it gotten them but inevitably right back to where they started? But this time round, he's done with the tricks and the games. Lightning begins to encircle Odin as he berates Loki for forgetting his place and mistaking him for some helpless old man rather than the All-Father. He launches lightning at Loki, but before it can strike, he is gone. In a flash, Loki is behind Odin with a knife to his throat. He says Odin has his pity, as he has spent the last millennia hiding away complacently amongst the humans. He'll teach them what oblivion feels like, and even if Odin survives this, he's going to enjoy this nonetheless, and plunges his dagger into his father's throat. He says this isn't retribution, but prophecy. It's the end of all things. We jump forward to 9 days after the death of Odin. An archaeological team is in Saqqara, Egypt, where an ancient tome has led them to the site of some ruins and the promise of a massive discovery with the potential to change everything. However, there are murmurs and whispers amongst the workers that they have heard rumours that what they are doing will unleash some kind of evil on the world, and some have already quit as a result. The lead archaeologist, Zoe, is furious and demands that they push forward with the dig, and just as she is saying her piece, there is a massive explosion within the ruins. The explosion causes wreckage and damage, but also it uncovers what they were looking for: a mummified corpse. Zoe demands that everyone gets in here to clear the area and transport the corpse back to her office. At her office, Zoe begins to try and remove some of the bandages from the corpse so that she can examine it. But as she begins to do so, the corpse begins to stir. At first she awakens in her mind, as she stirs from a 1,000-year-long waking sleep, one that she was entrapped in by Odin. With his death, she begins to regain her wherewithal. Her mind returns to her and her body begins to ignite with life. As it's awoken and restored from the prison it was trapped in, flesh and muscles and nerves regrow, and she is awake. She remembers who she is. She is Hel, the goddess of death and the daughter of Loki. With one look at the archaeologist, who is still processing everything that's going on, and as Hel speaks, Zoe is overwhelmed with power and screamed as she is eradicated. Hel tears security doors away with a thought: and as others rush to see what the commotion is, they are left drained and slaughtered in Hell's wake, until she emerges into the sunlight for the first time in 1,000 years. As she emerges from the facility, she is met by her father Loki, who is waiting for her. He tells her that Odin is dead. Well, at least dead for long enough to allow her to be free. She tells him that she won't be a pet to anyone, not to Odin and not to him. Loki says that it's different this time. He'd say trust him, but they both know that she's not that trusting. And Loki isn't the trustworthy kind, but tells her to get dressed, as he will show her something that will change her mind. And besides, the world won't burn itself. Another week passes and now we are at a graveside. We see a man, Angus, standing and giving a eulogy for his grandfather. He attempts to read off of notes that he has, but says he isn't very good at this. He says that his grandfather was never satisfied and always seemed to want more. More adventures, more knowledge, more of everything. He taught him how to seek and how to keep seeking. Angus's grandfather didn't believe in heaven, so maybe he's just on another adventure, or watching them from afar. But wherever he is, he wants to be more like him. After the funeral, Angus makes his way to the subway to catch the train to a concert that his band is playing that night. We then get a voiceover from someone using some very poetic wording. They seem to hint that the god is still being asleep. The voice mentions that there are cracks between realms, and that those that can see or hear the truth would seem and sound mad to those still asleep to the lie. Ignorance has been afforded to people until now that have happily become slave to their senses and the world they are in. We see Angus with his eyes shut on the train, and the Cthulhu-esque creature that apparently has been the one that has been narrating looks upon him through the train window and says, "A choice between flesh and dirt, or the soul and the infinite abyss. Which eyes will be open?" A slam awakens Angus as tentacles then smash through the side of the train and enter, engulfing him as he screams and looks upon the face that had been watching him, only for him to wake up on the train and everything is normal. A young girl sits across the train from him and says that she wishes she could say that it was just a dream, but that would be cruel, to lie to him like that. Angus asks if he knows her, or if she just says random stuff to people on the train all the time. She says if only it was just random stuff. She came to see him and tell him of what is in the here and now, but he's still asleep. She is one that can see through the cracks between the worlds. She knows Angus just thinks she's crazy, but she came to warn him in hopes he wakes up before it's too late. She warns about the plot against his blood and that he has a fate. But before she leaves, she says that she was sorry to hear about his grandfather, but he'll see him again. After all, that isn't the first time that he's died. Angus, not sure what to make of the crazy time that he had on the train, exits and makes his way to the concert. At the venue, while Angus' band is playing on stage, there are two very special guests, Loki and Hel. They're looking out over the audience. Hel is not impressed by the band, wondering if this is really what passes for music these days. Loki tells her that the music isn't important, that he's much more interested than one of the people on the stage who's playing. The plan is to grab him take his soul and depart him to the afterlife before he even has a chance of realizing who he is. He asks Hell if she can manage that, and she says that if she was a lesser being, she would be insulted by that insinuation. But whether it's the atmosphere of the club, or whether it's the realization of the amount of people crammed into the venue, Hell steps off the balcony and into the crowd, and says not to mind her if she has a little fun, as being underground gives you quite the appetite. On the dance floor, she unleashes her power and drains and absorbs everyone in her vicinity. Angus and the rest of his band see what is happening and run for their lives. We see Hell finishing off the last person, and she looks satisfied. No, more than satisfied. She looks like a drug addict that just got a hit of what they needed. Loki approaches her, and he is pissed. He says that he's glad that she had her fill, but Hell lit the target and the whole reason that they were here, escape. All while she indulged herself. Hell isn't too pleased to be berated by her father. She reminds him that she is the queen of the dead and no lesser being. She feels more powerful than she has in ages. She uses her power over the dead to raise one of the corpses in the room. She says this is her army, to do her bidding, and she'll give him a lapdog to make sure that his nephew doesn't make it through the night. Angus is freaked out by what he watched happen at the club and begins to make his way back to the train to get out of there and head home. Unfortunately, Hell's soldier catches up with him, chases him down to the platform at the subway and plunges a dagger into Angus's heart. The soldier turns to dust once his duty is done, and as the first issue comes to a close, Angus stumbles into the train, collapsing into a seat and is bleeding out, all while the voiceover continues to talk about the other world that some can see, and how it's all there truly is. And soon, everyone's eyes will see the truth and be closed forever. Not even the gods of old will be able to escape. And I'm actually going to have to cut it there for today. This video is already getting fairly lengthy. It's already at nearly 20 minutes at this point. And I don't want to make this a massive extended video or push it back any further. I was starting to get caught up with some other stuff, and this video has already been delayed, so I wanted to bring at least part 1 of the story of Immortal Coil to you, and then we'll hit part 2. That'll drop here next week, which if you want to make sure you don't miss out on that, go down, hit the subscribe button so you get notifications as well. And yeah, we'll jump into part 2, which when things really start to pick up. For this first issue, I'll give a little overview of it. I'll give most of my kind of real reaction and full thoughts at the end of part 2 for overall. But for part 1, yeah, the story is intriguing enough to get pulled in. The story is enough to drag me into it, to see Loki on a kind of revenge tour, to see him starting to put his plan into motion, and the pieces fall together of him killing Odin, of him finding his daughter Hel and bringing her into the fold, and then starting to hunt down other members of, or other Asgardians who are in the world and who are asleep, who are stuck in this world not aware of who they truly are. And by the end of the first issue we learned that Angus is one of them. He was the main character we started following, and realising that Loki wants to try and kill him, take his soul, send him to the afterlife before he even has a chance to awaken and know who he is. So Loki's clearly back for revenge. We find out during the course of stuff that Loki basically had attempted to finish Asgard before had attempted to bring Ragnarok, and something had been put in place to stop it. But as he says to Odin, something, you know, he doesn't even know fully what he did, but here we are, back where we were meant to be. And he's now trying to pick off the Asgardians before they awaken, before they remember who they are and have their power restored. So yeah, this is a really intriguing first issue. It's enough to pull you in for a second issue. If I hadn't read issue 2, I would definitely be intrigued to check out issue 2. It would definitely bring me back to it. The artwork, Gerald's artwork is just absolutely phenomenal in this. I think it's really great. The colouring in it is just a very beautiful, darker tone. It has a darker feel to it, but it's not like... But you still get a great expression of colour, a great expression of the scene. It's not quite at the level of those that you would see as those painted sort of works, kind of like... The first thing that comes to mind is like Alex Ross's like Kingdom Come. It's not quite to that level, but it definitely emanates a bit of that. And yeah, this was a very enjoyable issue. I thoroughly enjoyed Immortal Coil. So I am absolutely excited to check out part 2 next week with y'all. I'm absolutely excited to jump into that as the story really starts to ramp up. Again, I'm so sorry I'm having to cut this into 2 parts, but it'll be worth it in the long run, I promise. But thank you so much for hanging out with me. Make sure to go and check out Immortal Coil. I'll put links down below for the creators and for links to try and get it if they are available. I don't even know if they're fully still available or if it's just the website, since it was on Kickstarter, but I will put all the links down below to go and check that out. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today, and remember, it is a good week to be a geek. Take care, we'll see you all next week. Peace.